On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we're previewing KU at Oklahoma State football down in Stillwater.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on at KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get any of your podcasts. And on today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks, we are breaking down KU at Oklahoma State. You can also find our show on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. Thank you to the everydayers out there tuning into everything. So we have matchups of the game, top storylines, Hawks to soar, plenty more coming at you on this episode of the show. First, we're brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, well, KU Oklahoma State preview. This game will be at Saturday at 2:30 down in Stillwater, and it has not gone well for KU playing in Stillwater. Obviously, Kansas defeated Oklahoma State last season, and that's the game that got them bowl eligible. They did it with Jase Medical, and Jase Medical had an electric game for KU. He had that 75, 80-yard rushing touchdown. Devin Neal was unbelievable, had over 300 total yards and had nearly 40 touches for the game. It was a really impressive game all around. I mean, the KU defense even held them to 16 points, and that was at a time when Spencer Sanders was out for Oklahoma State, and they kind of went between Rangel and Gundy, and things did not work for them at the quarterback position. Things had not been working for Oklahoma State to start this year at the quarterback position, but it seems like they finally kind of settled on Alan Bowman. But yeah, man, a lot of good vibes coming out of last year's performance, and that was your first win over Oklahoma State in a while. The last time you were in Stillwater, 2021, it was no contest. 55-3 was the final score. Jason Bean, that was his worst ever game by QBR. It was like a 2 QBR. And that Oklahoma State defense was really, really good. So you hope that he's not seen any ghosts from that perspective, and you have more of the positive memories from last year of bowl eligible and a chance to do so again this year. Now, the last time you've won in Stillwater for KU, you have to go back to the Orange Bowl season in 2007, in which it was a night game, and I think you had like Brent Musburger and stuff, like the big crew on the call for ESPN, ABC, whatever. And KU obviously won that game. Darius Bowman went off for Oklahoma State, but KU put up over 40 points and ended up getting the win. It was a special season. The time before that Kansas went into Stillwater and got a win, I think you have to go back to 1995, which obviously was the year KU won the Aloha Bowl and finished as one of the best teams in the country. So last two times that you have won in Stillwater, you've had special seasons. And I think that's how I kind of view this game. Like, if KU wins in Stillwater, you have a real chance to have a special season. You lose this game, I think you still, make a bowl game, have a winning season, accomplish a lot. But winning this game, a tricky game on the road against a quality team who just beat Kansas State last week, who, I guess if Oklahoma State wins this, then we'll be viewing them maybe in a different light, that they've figured things out over the last couple of weeks. But right now, not a great Oklahoma State team, one that's beatable, even though they can also beat you. You win a game like this, you get to 6-1 headed into the bye week. It feels like you were really on track to have that special season, to have that 8 or 9 win season, right? This is the type of game that delivers that special season, and that's been the case last two times you won in Stillwater. We'll see if they can do it again for this week. Obviously, the other top storyline here, chance for KU bowl eligibility. Some of the players, I think Daniel Hishaw was meeting with the media yesterday, and we were talking with him and brought up the fact that, you can get to bowl eligibility with this win. And he kind of said, honestly, it's not something we've even kind of talked about. We're just kind of process oriented, and week in and week out, we're just saying, let's just win that week. And that's a great way to go about it. But I don't know, man, if you win the game, it's got to be in the back of your mind that, okay, we know we're bowl eligible. And maybe not from a standpoint of, I guess, because we're only in the 7th week of the season, that it doesn't become, so conscious. But from a fan base perspective, as you're watching the game, of course, you're going to celebrate if they make it back to a bowl game and win another game to get bowl eligible. Don't take anything for granted. And I think you go back to last year when you started 5-0 and then you dip to 5-3 and you're like, last time we started 5-0 back in 2009, we ended up 5-7, didn't make a bowl game. Maybe there's that little bit of panic in your mind. So just erase all of that. Get bowl eligible basically almost as soon as possible as you possibly could outside of one game away. And, celebrate that, because for KU to get bowl eligible, back-to-back years, not something that happens all the time in the football's history. It's also the chance for the other side, as I was kind of talking about here, for Oklahoma State to feel like they're back. You go from losing to South Alabama by a lot, losing to Iowa State, who Iowa State might actually be decent now. I don't know. The Ohio loss may be just weird, although Ohio might be pretty good. Whatever. If they beat Kansas State and Kansas back-to-back, two teams that have been in that discussion for maybe being the third best team in the Big 12, maybe we start to figure, okay, maybe Oklahoma State has figured their stuff out, and maybe they're back in that conversation too. So it's a chance for them to be back and feel like they're, getting things rolling again from where we've typically seen them under Mike Gundy. As far as the Oklahoma State scouting report, they enter at 3-2 on the season. They're 1-1 in Big 12 play. They're 48th overall on ESPN SP+. Close wins to begin the year over Central Arkansas, so an FCS team. They only beat by 14. Then they win on the road against not a very good Arizona State Power 5 team, but, still a road Power 5 win. 33-7 was how much they lost by to South Alabama. South Alabama is a team from last year that won 10 games. They're going to win a lot of games this year, and they already have. But to lose like that to South Alabama was very alarming. Then they lost 34-27 at Iowa State, and that was on the heels of Iowa State losing to Ohio, so it was like, oh, that's a bad loss too. Turns out Iowa State has kind of turned things around since then, and they've been much more competent as well. But then they completely reversed tread, did Oklahoma State by downing Kansas State last Friday, 29-21. And it was a game that Kansas State was -3 in turnovers, so Oklahoma State forced a bunch, and that's kind of how they were able to. It's almost like K-State lost the game more than Oklahoma State won the game. But you give a team like Oklahoma State, who does have talent and does have coaching and does have the pedigree, some life, and they're going to be able to take advantage of it. So if you're Kansas, just don't do those things. Now, offensively, Oklahoma State ranks 90th on ESPN's FPI, offensive efficiency. They're 58th on SP+, which is still factoring in some preseason stuff. And they're 12th in the Big 12 of 14 teams in points per game. KU, out of comparison, is second. So you have one of the bottom three offenses here going against one of the top three offenses. Now, seems like Alan Bowman has settled in at quarterback for Oklahoma State. They went from rotating three guys early, and that hurt some of the success of the offense, to then Alan Bowman kind of taking over here, and he was the guy against Kansas State. He wasn't electric against Kansas State. He wasn't bad, though. He was above average. He was fine. He was solid, and that's just what they needed with the defense playing well and forcing 3 turnovers. Just having more stability at the quarterback position leads to more stability on an offense, and that's what we saw last week with Alan Bowman taking over. Ollie Gordon has really gotten going at the running back position. He's a good running back. Last couple weeks, he's really been. He's kind of a bruising back. Can really hit you on one-cut runs, a lot like a lot of their running backs that they've had, a lot of one-cut runners. And Gordon's really started to pick it up. So they've got some skill there. Overall, though, they are last in the Big 12 in yards per play at 5.0 yards per play. They are last in the Big 12 in yards per pass. This has not been a great offense so far. Defensively, they're 46th on ESPN's FPIs for defensive efficiency. They're 50th on SP+, and they're 9th in the Big 12 in points allowed per game. KU there is 11th. But they are 9th in the league in yards allowed per carry, 8th in yards allowed per pass. There have been some games they've given up big rushing totals. It's a defense that's kind of like, the defense seems to be the strength so far, but it's also not like a great defense. It's a solid defense. So if Kansas plays their game and you avoid turnovers, I think you should be okay. But going on the road, tough environment, easier said than done. All right, let's get on to our matchups of the game and get to Hawks to soar and to stick out here. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, which is why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. all you got to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Got to add that right team member, just as, any football, basketball team, baseball team, whatever, is trying to add that next piece, that final piece that's going to get them over the top, win the championship. You want to do that for your business. So do that with LinkedIn Jobs. Small businesses rate them number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Our matchups of the game, we start with first down. The KU rushing offense against the Oklahoma State run defense. So Oklahoma State's run defense gave up over 240 rushing yards to South Alabama. They also, even in the win over Kansas State on last Friday, they gave up over 200 rushing yards to Kansas State. So they've shown at times an ability to be ran on. And KU right now is 6th in the country on Pro Football Focus and run blocking grade. They block really well. The backs are obviously really good, make you miss, break a lot of tackles, have good vision. Oklahoma State, meanwhile, is 123rd in the country on run defense on Pro Football Focus. They are 114th in tackling grade. There are a lot of avenues and ways here that Kansas can have a good rushing game. Overall, Oklahoma State's 4.4 yards allowed per carry. That is 11th in the Big 12 of the 14 teams. Oddly enough, they've only given up 3 rushing touchdowns. So I don't know what that about. I guess just in the red zone, they go all out on stopping the run. Out of comparison, Kansas has allowed 12 rushing touchdowns. Oklahoma State's only given up 3. So they've been good around the goal line, but overall they've struggled against the run. And for Kansas, you're coming off a game with 399. Now, obviously, Oklahoma State is going to see that. And I'd imagine basically a majority of the defensive game plan is going to be centered around stopping the run. So because of what KU did, it created such a statement. They're going to put a big emphasis on it, which means Jason Bean and the play action game, it has to be there. And I'd imagine they're going to have more openings. So maybe this is one of the bigger games for the receivers, but it still is your strength. And UCF still expected you to run the football bunch. And even though UCF was expecting the run, because still before then you had a bunch of big games, you were still able to run the football well. So it has become such a strength that even if Oklahoma State extra prepares for it, what does that mean? You have 180 rushing yards, you have 200 rushing yards, right? There's a lot of ways it can go. Second down in our matchups of the game, special teams. Both these teams have had good special teams, and we saw the brunt of that last week for KU against UCF. Kansas is 16th on special teams on Pro Football Focus. Oklahoma State is 3rd. On FPI, Kansas is 34th. Oklahoma State's 52nd. On SP+, KU is 10th. Oklahoma State's 28th. So these are 2 good special teams, basically any metric way you kind of look at it here. And Oklahoma State's had really good kicking. Kansas had good kicking, perfect kicking till last week. The kick return game and the punt return game showed itself last week. Special teams can be a big decider in a game like this that's seen as a coin flip. I say it all the time, and you have 2 good special teams units. So I guess watch out for that. Third down matchup here, Oklahoma State's pass rush against the KU blocking and passing attack. So the best thing about this Oklahoma State defense is their pass rush. They've got a good defensive line. They're athletic. They get after you. Seems like always each and every year Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State have a dude who's he's going to be in the NFL next year. On the defensive line. This is a good pass rusher. They are 10th in the country on Pro Football Focus in pass rush grade. This is a good pass rushing unit. Now, obviously, KU has been good at pass blocking this year, and this kind of goes in line with the, if Oklahoma State puts extra numbers to stopping the run, and then you look at their pass rush, that means there's going to be a lot on Jason Bean, a lot on the offensive line, a lot on the receivers to win, and maybe because of what you did to pull attention in terms of your running game last week, maybe that'll open things up even more for the receivers and for Jason Bean to have a big game. We saw Jason Bean have a big game against Oklahoma State last week. But yeah, man, you got to avoid the pass rush and can't let that take over the game too much. Certainly running the football would help in that regard too, but there are going to be key plays, key downs where KU's going to have to win on those downs, whether it is with the pass block, the receivers winning quickly, and or Jason Bean delivering on time and a good ball. Fourth down matchup here. The turnover battle. So KU is 7-2 in the Leipold era when having 0 turnovers. Okay. They had no turnovers last week against UCF, so that, classifies as part of that. And Oklahoma State was +3 last week. That's why they won the game. Those 3 interceptions they got on Will Howard, that is why they won the game. As long as you avoid being like -2 or worse, I think you win this game. I even think you might be able to get away with winning this game if you lose the turnover battle like 1-0 or 2-1 or something. Just kind of depends on, I guess, how the turnover is. Like, is the 2 turnovers you had in that situation, are they pick sixes or is the one right? I think you might be able to get away with that, but obviously if you're even, I would favor KU, and if you're plus, I feel like I would be very confident that KU would win the game. So, just avoid the big turnover game because I think you are the better team here. Now, obviously, they do have the home field advantage, and that can sway things, but just don't let it get out of control with the turnovers. In Oklahoma State, for them, they're going to be ball hawking. They're going to be trying to do that. So, the turnover battle is going to be pretty critical in this game. Our player matchup, Devin Neal / Daniel Hishaw, so basically the KU running backs, against Nicholas Martin for Oklahoma State. Martin is the team leader for Oklahoma State in tackles. He has 45 of them this season, and he's also the team leader in sacks with 3 of them. They play this 3-3-5 defense. It's a multiple defense. I've talked before that it's felt like to me some of the defenses that KU has maybe seen better challenges against have been the multiple defenses. You go back to last year, Iowa State, multiple defense. You go back earlier this year, Nevada, a multiple defense. Maybe they've been able to match up a little bit better with the speed and the motion of the KU offense because a multiple defense, they're going to be moving around a lot. And so you're going to see a lot of different linebacker blitzes, different guys standing up, and a lot of different versatile things that the defense can do. Martin is part of that, and that he will blitz at times. He will make plays in the tackling game. Now, overall, Oklahoma State has struggled tackling with their tackling grade and missed tackles and stuff. And that could be big games if they continue to do that for Devin Neal and Daniel Hishaw. And so a lot of times you have running backs matched up with linebackers, whether it's the running back getting to that second level where the linebacker is going to try to make the tackle, or if it's in the passing game, a lot of times the linebacker is going to be, if it's in man-to-man, going up against the running back. So a lot of ways these guys can kind of match up against each other. Sometimes Martin might be blitzing and you might have to pass block him if you're the running back. And we've seen Daniel Hishaw do well in pass blocking over the last couple of weeks. So this will be a really good player matchup. It's kind of strength on strength. Your good running backs against their good linebacker. All right, we're going to continue on with our hot score players to stick out for KU in this game. First, this episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. You can get Kansas -3.5 against Oklahoma State. The over-under is sitting at 55.5. You'll be able to get some player props like touchdowns or yard totals. And maybe you can base those off of our Hawks to Soar in our next segment here. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Finishing things off with our Hawks to Soar, players to stick out, players to watch, whatever you want to call it, for the KU Oklahoma State game for the Jayhawks. Offensively, I'm going to go with Luke Grimm. Luke Grimm last week was KU's leader in receiving yards. Weren't a ton to go around. He had 41 of them, but had a nice connection on a couple key plays and nice passes from Jason Bean. Now, Oklahoma State's slot receiver, or slot corner, Rucker, has just a 45.4 Pro Football Focus grade. He has very much struggled for their slot corner. Guess where Luke Grimm plays? He's the slot. So Luke Grimm going to have a matchup advantage there. And we saw the connection last week with Bean to Grimm. Grimm's been really good this season. I like him as a player to stick out on the offense here. Defensively, I'm going to go with Austin Booker. He's been the star of the show lately. He's been awesome. Oklahoma State offensive line has struggled on the left side. They've been actually fine on the right side. The right side of the offensive line from center on has been, solid to good. Left guard and left tackle have struggled, and they struggle the most at left tackle. Birmingham has a Pro Football Focus grade under 50. It's at 49.6. So you're talking about a left tackle that struggled, a defensive end in Austin Booker, who over the last 3 weeks has 9 pressures and is leading your team in sacks and has one of the top sack totals in the conference. He's been on a roll. Austin Booker can keep it going. Alan Bowman's not the most mobile guy in the world, right? He's got a little bit of mobility to him. He's, I don't know, maybe not quite as much as Quinn Ewers, but maybe more than like a statuesque guy. So Austin Booker, look out for him to have another big game for KU, and certainly they could use it. But overall, this is going to be a good opportunity for the KU defense against an offense that's not great overall, but provides different challenges. They will go up tempo at times, and they like to run the football. So you got to be able to stop the run. And for the KU offense, this is going to be probably a tougher defense than you played last week, and one that's opportunistic and will try to force turnovers, but not one that's an elite defense either, that if you play your game, you should be okay. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get any of your podcasts. You can also like and subscribe to our show on our YouTube page, and we'll be back later this weekend for a recap of the KU Oklahoma State game and get into plenty more content after that. Thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend.